In 1995, when we were affiliated with NIB, it's really important, we got a request saying that the VA hospital, the Stratton VA hospital in Albany, wants to do away with their call center. And NIB had approached the Albany agency to do it. And they were dragging their feet and they weren't sure they wanted to do it and all that. So NIB contacted us because we were pretty aggressive and we were doing a lot of good things. And they said, would you take over that project if Albany doesn't follow through? And we said, well, I think so. I think we'd be interested in it. Well, I found out there was only one other place in the country that was doing it as a satellite, and that was Houston, Texas. So I got in touch with Gib DeTerrell, and I said, Gib, how is that working out? He said, oh, it's working out fine. You get a good manager. There's no reason why you can't do it. Make a long story short, we took on that project in 1994.
94-5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still running. We got, I don't know how many people that work at the VA hospital. You hired the supervisor, and it's 24 hours a day, and blind people are taking all the calls for the Stratton VA hospital. 1 year after we did that, we got a call from Buffalo VA and Syracuse VA and said, would you do the same thing and take over our VA switchboard? And I said, well, wait a second. I called the director in Buffalo of the agency, and there's an agency in Syracuse, and I said, why don't you people do it? We'll help you out, but it's right in your own backyard. And they agreed, they did it, and they're still running it. And there are now, I think, 28 of them in the country that are being
But
run.
I remember when we went down to look at that answering service down there. I went down, and I forget who went with me. We went down, and they showed us what they'd been operated with sighted people. And they really weren't all that happy with the arrangement they had. And when we went in there, I looked at the equipment that they had, and I said, it would take me 2 years to learn to do this. We're going to bring blind people in here to work this equipment?
Well, that's a good point.
And I said, how are we ever going to do that? But she said, oh, it'll be no problem. And we did. We took, I don't know how many blind people we had.
How many did we sell?
Well, you know what happened? Yeah, but just to add to that, Ken, and you were right, everything you just said, we decided that, you know, in order to be able to purchase even more sophisticated equipment, because a lot of that expense came to us. So we hired a company that specialized in adaptive computer equipment. Remember that, Don? Remember? Yeah,
China.
yeah. So, and I remember we had them come to see the operation, and again, they said, we can do it. We can adapt this equipment using the equipment you already have, like you said, but we're going to make it even better so that no question about it, you can use totally blind people doing all of this communicating with these computers, with the phones, and so on and so forth. I'd have to ask Kathy Beaver. She was with me. We're the ones, you know, she knew more about it than I did, this adaptive equipment. And we made an arrangement to have that equipment.
She may be the one that went down there.
It was Kathy
that went
Beaver.
down there. Yeah.
She's still here.
Yeah, I sent her to Houston to
But you're right,
talk
Ken.
to them.
That was something. You were,
Yeah.
same thing when I went there. I saw this equipment. I says, how can they learn blind people?
Yeah.
But
It's been very successful.
But look, during the one of the big storms or one of the big crises that we had, we provided
Yes.
the communications.
Well, it was 24/7. We had to operate that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we had swing shifts, of course. And yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So anyways, that's been up and running, still running, very successful. And then, of course, the other thing that we need to talk about, it's a big step forward, was getting into the base supply centers.
Well, the first one was in Connecticut.
In Connecticut, New England states.
Yeah.
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 And-
Well, just a little background. The federal government said, we're going to give all of these people on these bases credit cards to purchase rather, so we don't have to run the store. So they approached National Industries for the Blind and they said, do you have agencies that want to run these stores? In other words, we want to get out of it. Oh, I know what it was. When they gave them all the credit cards, they found out they were going off base for a long
Yes.
time.
Yeah, they were going to
So they
Home
really
Depot
wanted to
and-
store
And they'd
back
gone-
on
Walmart.
base.
And they'd be gone 4 or 5
They'd go
hours.
for 4 or 5 hours.
So they wanted to store back on base, and they said, "Will you guys run it? Will you get somebody to run it?" Well, it happened very quickly, and NIB threw this out to all of their affiliated agencies. We only wanted to stay in the Northeast, where some agencies were applying, Alaska, all over the place.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, all over the place. And we said, no, we just want to stay in the Northeast. So anyways, I can remember going and speaking to the NIB board, and I said, you know, the policy you're giving all the bigger agencies the first shot at these. You should give the agency in the state the opportunity to run the store if their board approves and they got the capabilities. If they don't want to, then you open it up to other agencies. Oh, they said, oh, that's a good idea. Well, they fell back on first come, first serve type of thing. But anyways, they knew we were interested, and we found out that the first thing was the submarine base in Groton, Connecticut wanted the base supply store. And so we opened that, and we put in a lot of money to that, renovate that.
The building, yeah, the building.
You know, there was a funny story that went with that, because Luca was talking to this fella, and his nickname was Shorty. His name was Shorty something. And Luca and I went down to meet with this fellow, and when he came out to meet us, he was 6'3".
Oh, yeah.
And we said, they call
That's
you.
why I'm called
Why do
Shorty."
they call you Shorty? He said, my boss calls me Shorty. He said, how tall is he? He's 6'6".
And he was a guy that helped us get another store in Maine. I remember that. But this was in 2000. In 2000, the naval ship submarine base in Groton, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And we put in $251,000 in renovations.
Who did the renovations for you?
Well, here,
You had to send in
I don't remember.
Gaetano Construction
Did you
Company.
do that?
Well,
we
here's what
always
happened.
sent Dave Kleps down.
we said, gee,
We said-
you know, how can we oversee, how can we hire
That's
a
right.
company in Connecticut to do this? Who's going to oversee this company? Well, it's a no-brainer. Gaetano. So we sat down with Gaetano, and we got Dave Kleps, great guy. He and I used to drive back and forth, and I'd say, now,
That's
this
right.
is what we need, Dave. We need shelves, we need this, we need that, we need this.
I forgot
then
all about that, Charlie.
He was the go-between between the company who was located in Groton that was doing a lot of the construction. But it was Dave, under Dave's
Supervision.
auspices, supervision, and that's how we got the building going.
Well, the grand opening
it was
was
not easy.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the base command, they had it all decked out with ribbons, and I made a
Yep.
speech, and the base commander made a speech, and we took a number of blind people down there to the submarine base, and we had the band. It was fantastic.
fantastic.
And that was our first one, and then all of a sudden, Westover Air Force Base came up
Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts, and we said, we'll take that.
Yeah.
That was
That-
actually being done by an agency in Rhode Island, and they weren't doing a good job. And then
So they
IB
gave it
pulled
up.
it away
We took it.
and approached us, and we said, we'll take that.
But I remember when we were down there, and I forget who I went with, but we, at the submarine base, we went in, and there were this, and we were talking to these people, and all of a sudden everybody stopped talking and went over to the windows. We went over to the windows and looked out, and there was a nuclear submarine deploying out to the Atlantic. It was going down the river, deploying to the Atlantic. I
think that was the first one, or-
And when we were when we were standing there were maybe a dozen people in the room. You could hear a pin drop
Wow.
when that nuclear submarine was going down, and we watched it come across all the way till it was out of sight, and I thought about that for weeks afterwards. What those people aboard that submarine were doing for us.